On November 20, 2025, the Central Highlands of Vietnam entered what would soon be known as the most devastating flood in more than 3 decades. The provinces of Gia Lai, Gia Lai, and Khánh Hòa, together with large parts of the south-central coast, were hit by an unprecedented combination of extreme rainfall and massive hydropower discharge. The epicenter of the catastrophe was Gia Lai province, especially around Buôn Ma Thuột City, the districts of Alcar, Krông Pc, Krông Ana, Cúm Gar, and the upper basin of the Bar River. Rain had been falling relentlessly since November 17th, but by the early hours of November 19th and 20th, the sky opened with an intensity no resident had ever seen. Some districts recorded 400 to 500 millimeters of rain in just 24 hours. Eastern Gia Lai reached a staggering 700 millimeters, the highest daily rainfall ever measured there. In certain areas, rainfall peaked at 110 millimeters in a single hour, enough to turn calm streams into violent, overflowing torrents. Weather stations could barely keep up. Rain gauges filled faster than they could be emptied. And then came the consequences. In the dawn light of November 20th, one of the first visible signs of disaster appeared at a small but vital crossing near Alcal, between Krông Pc and Si Cuan districts. The river beneath it, normally shallow in the dry season, had turned into a roaring, brown fury. Dozens of uprooted trees, sections of bamboo fences, and farm debris slammed into the underside of the structure. The pillars trembled violently, within moments, and with a grinding metallic shriek, the central span gave way. The bridge collapsed and disappeared into the churning current. For the nearby communities, this wasn't simply the loss of a structure, it was the sudden severing of a lifeline used daily for school, trade, and agriculture. Barely 10 kilometers away, another dramatic moment unfolded. A blue cargo truck attempted to cross a flooded section of road near Ala Drang village. Despite warnings from onlookers, the driver believed he could make it through. But the water was deeper and faster than he could judge from the surface. The current caught the vehicle, spinning it sideways. The engine sputtered out, and the truck was left stranded in the middle of the torrent. The driver crawled out through the window and climbed onto the roof, gripping the metal frame while waves slammed against the vehicle. He waited there, trembling and soaked, hoping rescue teams would arrive before the truck was swept entirely downstream. These incidents were just 2 of the countless dangers emerging simultaneously across Gia Lai. The underlying cause was a catastrophic combination of meteorological events. A powerful northeast monsoon collided with moist air from the East Sea, forming a moisture-laden low-pressure trough directly above the Central Highlands. The resulting rainfall exceeded everything in living memory. At the same time, hydropower reservoirs in the Bar River basin already filled beyond safe limits were forced to discharge enormous volumes of water. The Seng Bai H hydropower plant, located downstream in Pha Yin province, increased its outflow to 13,000 cubic meters per second, with forecasts suggesting it might reach 14,000 cubic meters per second if rainfall continued. Smaller upstream plants like Krông Ana and Bac Krông also released thousands of cubic meters per second. For residents downstream, the effect was immediate and overwhelming. Water pouring from the sky combined with massive releases from reservoirs, producing what locals described as a flood on top of a flood. By the morning of November 19th, the situation had spun out of control. Districts such as Alcar, Krông Ana, Krông Pc, and Cúm Gar saw water rise from knee height to chest height in less than 2 hours. In some villages, the level increased 30 to 40 centimeters every 10 minutes, leaving no time to escape. Thousands of homes, many built with thin concrete walls or wooden frames, were instantly submerged up to their windows. Others collapsed under the pressure of the current. As the camera moves deeper into Buôn Ma Thuột City, the largest urban center in Gia Lai, the true extent of the disaster becomes visible. Streets that normally buzz with motorbikes and street vendors have disappeared under a rushing brown sea. Major arteries like La Duan, Nguyen Cang Trc, Phan Chu Trinh, and Wai Mon are now waterways, with cars half submerged or drifting aimlessly, pushed by the force of the flood. Narrow alleys in the neighborhoods of Al Tam, Tan Li, and Tien turn into dangerous, fast-moving channels. Drain covers burst open from below as pressurized storm water forces its way up. Residents stand in their living rooms with water up to their waists, trying to lift televisions, rice cookers, and mattresses above the rising line. Children cling to balconies. The sound of rushing water mixes with sirens, shouting, and the constant crack of debris colliding with gates and fences. Amid the chaos, life continues in strange ways. In one alley of Tien Ward, people kneel in the flood water washing their dishes, plates, chopsticks, pots because the water supply system has collapsed. Wells are contaminated, electricity is unstable, and bottled water is impossible to reach. Survival takes on new forms when nature overturns the routines of daily life. Beyond the city, the devastation expands even further. Gia Lai is the heart of Vietnam's coffee belt, producing nearly 40% of the country's coffee output. Vast plantations stretch across districts such as Ai Chaleo, Krông Pắc, Cúm Gar, and Ao Car. But now, from the air, these farmland landscapes resemble a drowned world. Entire coffee farms are swallowed by 2 to 3 meters of muddy water. Pepper vines, which take years to mature, lie uprooted. Cassava fields vanish beneath the flood. Farmers stand helplessly on embankments, watching their year's harvest drift away. Many fields will take years, not months, to recover, especially those where soil has been eroded or replaced by silt. The flood doesn't stop at agriculture. The region's transportation network collapses. National Highway 29 is blocked at 13 separate points due to deep flooding. The Phong Hong Pass on Highway 26 suffers repeated landslides that erase entire sections of the road. On National Highway 19C, a huge hillside collapses, burying the pavement in mud and rock. National Highway 1, Vietnam's most important north-south route, becomes impassable between Hoa Long Lagoon and Sang Siu Town, creating lines of stranded vehicles stretching for kilometers. In mountainous communities such as Yang Mao and Yang Han Commune, landslides cut off all access. A violent collapse along the Trong Sen Hong Road buries multiple houses and sends families fleeing with only their documents and whatever belongings they can carry. Several bridges are destroyed. Residents are forced to use ropes to pull motorbikes across streams, paying small fees to ferry them from one bank to the other. Evacuations become an urgent priority. Authorities across Gia Lai, Gia Lai, and Khánh Hòa mobilize thousands of personnel, soldiers, police officers, medical teams, engineers, and local volunteers. In Gia Lai alone, more than 7,700 households are evacuated in less than 48 hours. Helicopters from Air Division 370 to hover above isolated hamlets, dropping food, medicine, and life jackets where boats cannot reach. Soldiers trek through chest-deep water, carrying elderly residents on their backs and holding babies above the waves. In Gia Lai Province, more than 10,000 households totaling over 42,000 people are completely isolated when rivers break their banks. In Khánh Hòa, the situation is even more dire. Landslides kill 10 people, including 6 lost to a massive collapse at Khen La Pass on November 17. Rivers like the Khai Na Trang and Khai Phen Rang rise above the highest warning level, pushing authorities to issue near-constant alerts for flash floods and landslides. Back in Buôn Ma Thuột, aerial footage reveals a city transformed. What was once a vibrant urban center now resembles a patchwork of rooftops cast adrift in a muddy ocean. Neighborhoods merge into a single, uninterrupted floodplain. Cars lie overturned, shops are filled with debris, and streets dissolve beneath the currents. At Hongven, the primary school, converted into an emergency shelter, families crowd into classrooms where volunteers distribute instant noodles and bottled water. Personal stories emerge, stories of fear, survival, and loss. A mother from Krông Ana describes lifting her children onto the roof in the dark as the water climbed higher than her waist. A mechanic in Ao Car watches 20 years of tools disappear beneath the mud. A young couple loses their wedding photos when the sudden surge bursts open their front door. As the video approaches its final minutes, a montage of photos highlights the immense effort of rescue workers and the staggering scale of destruction. Soldiers stretch ropes across torrents so villagers can cross safely. Rescue boats navigate through submerged rice paddies, heading toward isolated clusters of homes. Helicopters lower relief packages onto tiny islands of dry ground. Farmers stand knee-deep in what used to be their fields. Children wrapped in blankets wait for news of missing relatives. The 2025 Central Highlands flood stands as a turning point, a brutal reminder of the vulnerabilities created by extreme weather, rapid urbanization, and the increasing strain on hydropower systems. It shows how quickly life can shift, how infrastructure can fail, and how communities must adapt to a world where climate extremes are no longer rare. And yet, amid the disaster, hope persists. Communities unite. Volunteers rush to help strangers. Rescue forces work around the clock. The spirit of resilience, deeply rooted in the people of Vietnam, shines through every act of courage. As the waters slowly recede, leaving behind mud, debris, and ruined crops, the people of Gia Lai begin the long journey of rebuilding. The scars will remain on the land, on the economy, and on the hearts of those who lived through it. But so too will the lessons, reminding future generations of the importance of preparedness, cooperation, and respect for the forces of nature. The flood of November 2025 was not just a natural event. It was a moment that reshaped lives, landscapes, and the collective memory of an entire region. A moment captured in every collapsed bridge, every stranded truck, every flooded alley, every destroyed field, and every photograph of the soldiers and volunteers who refused to give up. As the first sunlight broke through the clouds the following morning, the scale of the devastation became even more shocking. The Central Highlands, known for its rolling plateaus and rich red soil, now looked more like a vast inland sea. The heavy rains that hammered the region for days left behind a swollen, restless landscape where rivers no longer followed their natural courses. Water spread anywhere it could find the slightest downward slope, carving new channels across farms, roads, and neighborhoods. Meteorologists at the Gia Lai hydrometeorological station confirmed that the storm had delivered a historic deluge. Between November 17th and November 21st, cumulative rainfall in certain districts approached 1,200 millimeters, nearly twice the monthly average of the peak monsoon. Even seasoned weather experts admitted they had never seen such a long, sustained period of cloudbursts. In some hours, the rain hammered down at intensities above 90 to 120 millimeters, the kind normally associated with tropical cyclones. But this time, the sky unleashed its fury, without the presence of any typhoon, just a deadly interaction of monsoon winds, cold air, and warm tropical moisture. With so much water overwhelming the land, the rivers of Gia Lai and Gia Lai essentially lost their identity. The Krông Ana, Krông Ana, Khánh, and Krông Pắc systems all broke their banks, merging with flooded fields and low-lying villages until everything blended into one continuous sheet of murky water. Local fishermen said they no longer recognized the rivers they had known since childhood. Traditional fishing spots vanished, riverbanks were erased, and the flow direction in some tributaries even reversed for several hours due to the immense hydraulic pressure downstream. In Buôn Ma Thuột, the capital city of the province, residents described the flood as surreal. It was like the city sunk overnight, one shop owner said. The city's drainage system, designed to handle heavy but typical monsoon rain, proved utterly insufficient. Drains clogged instantly with leaves, trash, and sediment. Water pressure forced manhole covers to explode upward like geysers. In some downtown streets, the current grew so strong it swept motorbikes away as easily as fallen branches. Footage captured stray refrigerators, plastic chairs, and even entire metal kiosks drifting down major boulevards. The economic impact deepened with each passing hour. Thousands of shops in the central markets of Tan Lpp, Iautam, and Thing Li were inundated. Electronics stores lost stock worth months of savings. Pharmacies saw entire inventories of medicines ruined by dirty floodwater. Coffee processing warehouses where beans were drying in preparation for export suffered severe contamination. A few factories tried to save machinery by elevating equipment onto pallets, but the water rose too quickly. Engines, motors, and delicate electronic boards soaked beyond repair. Outside the urban centers, rural life faced its own catastrophe. Smallholder farmers watched as water swallowed the last of their harvest. Cassava plants, once standing tall, now floated like driftwood. Cornfields lay flattened, the soil beneath them turned into slick, unstable mud. Poultry farms lost thousands of chickens when structures collapsed or when animals drowned in their pens. Even cattle and buffalo, usually strong enough to wade through seasonal floods, struggled against the violent currents created by overflowing irrigation channels. In Ao Kar district, the village of Si Hui became temporarily unreachable. Armed forces had to paddle inflatable boats through narrow gaps between treetops because the actual roads were buried several meters below water. Residents waved from rooftops, using bright-colored cloths or plastic basins to catch the rescuers' attention. Helicopters circled above, dropping drinking water and instant noodles onto tarps stretched across rooftops. In the mountainous commune of Yang Re, continuous rain loosened entire hillsides already weakened by deforestation. A massive landslide thundered down at dawn, crushing crops and cutting off the only road leading to the village. No casualties occurred, but dozens of families found themselves isolated, relying on makeshift bamboo rafts to move between dry patches of land. Local authorities promised an emergency route, but heavy rain made earth-moving equipment nearly impossible to deploy. Further south in Khánh Hòa Province, rivers behaved unpredictably. The Khai River, normally placid, rose to levels exceeding past records by nearly a meter. The rapid surge caught many residents by surprise. In several low-lying neighborhoods of Nha Trang, floodwater entered homes at 4 a.m. while entire families slept. Some woke to the sound of household items floating against their beds. Others climbed onto cabinets or upper shelves until neighbors with boats arrived. Meanwhile, hydropower discharge continued, compounding the disaster. The release volumes, although necessary to prevent dam failure, created fear throughout communities living downstream. Radio alerts and district loudspeakers repeated warnings every hour. Water level rising. Move to high ground immediately. But many residents had nowhere higher to go. Hillsides were unstable, and shelters were already overcrowded. In the days following the peak of the flooding, the mobilization effort intensified dramatically. The military deployed engineering brigades equipped with amphibious transporters, chainsaws, generators, and rescue rafts. Photos captured soldiers forming human chains to pull elderly villagers across rushing waters. Volunteers distributed warm clothes, toothbrushes, clean water, and baby milk at improvised centers set up in schools and community halls. The solidarity was powerful. Youth groups organized themselves into cleanup teams, removing debris from shop fronts and clearing mud from living rooms. University students used social media to coordinate donation drives, collecting batteries, instant food, and blankets. Some residents with unused fishing boats offered them freely to rescue squads. A cafe owner provided free hot drinks to both victims and responders, describing it as the least he could do. Yet hope struggled against an even more difficult question. What came next? The flood had exposed deep vulnerabilities in infrastructure and land management. Urbanization in the Central Highlands had expanded faster than drainage systems could adapt.